Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 244. This is our Week 12 NFL Picks show. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from NBC Sports Boston. Jacob, how are you? And how was your Week 11? Hopefully better than mine.
I'm doing well. I don't think my week was much better than yours. In terms of money, probably a little bit better, but I only went 5-9 against the spread. Most of my big plays were bad. They did not turn out as I had planned, and pretty much if it weren't for the Chiefs barely surviving against the spread last night, I would have been in a big negative money week. I managed to break even so I won't complain too much, but my record definitely took a hit this week.
Yeah, that Chiefs one was it went down to the wire. I saw Nick Costos on Twitter tweeted. He said the Chargers should just kick the field goal to cover, and I was thinking like they'll probably miss the field goal even if they try to do that. That's kind of like what the Chargers are doing. So yeah, my week was overall I went 8-5-1. So not terrible overall, but unfortunately 4 out of my 5 losses were all picks of 4 units or more. So it was kind of a bloodbath. It's really sucked. The Texans were terrible, only 7 points. Like what a joke that was. And the Buccaneers sucked. I made a bad assumption on Drew Brees being hurt. But I always say that there's no such thing as a bad week if you learn something. So I felt like I learned something this week, and I think this will be beneficial going forward. So I'm excited to get to Week 12. What do you think about the Week 12 slate before we begin?
I like it a lot. It's one of my favorite slates in a while. I think there are a lot of lopsided games in this one. Some that'll be impacted by injuries that we can kind of take advantage of a little bit. I think we're going to be on opposite sides in some of them, but I think there will be a few big plays of mine that I think that we're going to end up agreeing on.
All right, let's get to it. The first game Thursday night's a good one. Colts at the Texans. Line open up. Texans -3.5 is still 3.5. There's a 4 out there. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Texans in this one, and that's a big statement coming from me because I usually try to avoid Bill O'Brien at all costs. But I just feel like on the short week after this horrible loss that they suffered against the Ravens, I feel like things are starting to shake out in their favor for this game. It's a home game, and the Colts are super beat up. Like, they're going to be without Marlon Mack, probably T.Y. Hilton. He might come back. If he does come back, maybe my assumption on this game will change. But they'll be without Eric Ebron, possibly. He hasn't practiced the last couple days. And just if you look at that injury report, the secondary's banged up too. Rocky Singh, Kari Willis, both banged up. So I just think all of those injuries are going to have massive negative impact on the Colts. The Texans are going to be kind of, a little bit upset after how badly they were embarrassed by the Ravens. So I don't think they're going to fold after it. I think they're going to try to strike back hard. The only concern I have is about Deshaun Watson. I know he got a little bit banged up in this game, or last game, but if he's healthy, I think the Texans will be able to win this one. So I'm going with them for now. Depending on what the final injury report is, I have 2 to 3 units on them. But I'm also open to hearing why I'm wrong for finally trusting Bill O'Brien. So if you disagree with me, let me know.
Yeah, this is a big coaching mismatch. I definitely trust Frank Reich over Bill O'Brien. We've talked about how bad O'Brien was, and I don't know what he was doing during his bye week to prepare for that game against Baltimore. He had 2 weeks to prepare for that game. And they lost 41-7, so doesn't give me much hope that he's going to improve in the future. I like the Colts in this game. I think the spread's too high. I made this line. Houston -2. DVOA says the spread should be Houston -1. They actually rate the Colts above the Texans. I know the Colts are banged up. There's a chance T.Y. Hilton could play, and his availability will really kind of determine how many units I'm going to have on this game. But I think that overall, just Indianapolis roster is just so much better. Like, even if Hilton and Mack are out, like, if you look at every position except for quarterback and receiver, can you name one area where the Texans are better than the Colts? Because I think the Colts are better in every other regard. Like offensive line, the Colts are far better, not even close. Defensive line with J.J. Watt out, I'll take the Colts for sure. Linebacking core with Darius Leonard, I think it's a no-brainer for the Colts. Secondary, it's kind of close. The Colts secondary is not that great, but Houston's secondary is just an abomination. They allowed Lamar Jackson to complete 13 passes in a row. And then the running game, Jonathan Williams looked okay last week, and I'm not a fan of Carlos Hyde. So, I just think overall the Colts are far better. They're coached better, and they've owned the Texans over the years. So I like the Colts. Like I said, Hilton's availability will determine how many units they're going to have in this game.
Yeah, and I absolutely get your argument here. I mean, I could see a world in which Frank Reich just comes in and just outcoaches Bill O'Brien very easily from the start. Again, it's specifically the receiving core for the Colts, their lack of weapons there makes me worried that they're not going to be able to exploit that Houston secondary, because the secondary for Houston hasn't been good this year, but they do have some players with talent. So I'm going to stick on the Texans here, but again, I can see the case for either side. Like, I don't disagree with what you're saying. And if Hilton plays, I'll probably drop my unit count maybe to 1, because that would really alleviate one of my major concerns. But I'm going to be on Bill O'Brien, and we'll see if he proves me wrong for trusting him, which I have no doubt that he will.
Yeah, I'm sure. Here we have a joke here. You want to hear a funny joke? Walter's player evaluating skills. This is great. I'm going to tell this joke at all my parties, and I'm going to be the life of the party with this funny joke. Can't wait. Let's go to Sunday. The Dolphins are at the Browns. This line opened up Browns minus 12.5. It's down to 11. Actually, the advanced spread in this game is Browns minus 9. So it's gone up in a sense. So who do you like in this game? I should note that 70% of the money is on the Dolphins. So public's still not scared of betting Miami.
Yeah, I got tricked last week by the Dolphins against the Bills. And that was one of the biggest mistakes. Pretty much you told me it was a mistake on the podcast, and I should have listened to you, but I didn't. I was so set in stone, I'm going to make my picks this week and not change any of them. And there were 2 that I really wish I'd changed. This was one of them. I think the Browns, even without Myles Garrett, they just match up so well against Miami. Baker Mayfield, that offense started to get going a little bit. And that game against the Steelers, they still have a lot of trouble. I think any coach not named Freddie Kitchens would probably have won that Thursday night game about 50-0. But again, the Steelers are better than the Dolphins. The Dolphins are not very good. They just got pummeled by Josh Allen. Baker Mayfield should have a good chance to keep that going. And the Browns are going to be motivated to get that Myles Garrett helmet incident, that taste from that win out of their mouth, because it did not feel like a win for them. It felt like a loss, because that whole crazy experience at the end was just kind of came out of nowhere, dominated the headlines. People even forgot the Browns won. So I think that they'll be able to cover here. I'm not going to bet a ton on this because it's Freddie Kitchens. So I may bet 1 unit. I just want to avoid any Fitzmagic cover at the end. But I will go with the Browns in this one.
Yeah, I usually like to go against advanced spread movement. If the line moves 2 points, I like to go the other way. But I think this is a kind of a correction to what it should be. I think the Browns. I think this line is about right. In fact, I think it's the computer model says the Browns should be 12-point favorites. So I'm going to be on the Browns. My concern though is the kind of their team psyche, because of what happened at the end of the game. I don't know how focused they're going to be on because I'm sure they're just answering questions about Myles Garrett the entire week. And next week they have to play the Steelers again. I don't know why the NFL scheduled it like this, but yeah, they're probably going to be looking ahead to the Steelers. So I don't know if we're going to get the Browns A game. The problem is that I agree with what you said. The Browns match up very well against the Dolphins, who are just dreadful. I just don't know how the Dolphins are going to do anything against this Browns defense. Even with that Myles Garrett, it sounds like Olivier Vernon is going to come back, so that should help them put pressure on Fitzpatrick. The cornerback should take care of the receivers. And I just don't know how Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to move the ball. So I think the Browns should be able to cover the spread. Just not crazy. I just don't think this is a good spot for the Browns, so I'm not going to bet them.
Yeah, that's totally fair. The only reason I'm betting them is because I think this is a statement game for Baker Mayfield. He needs to take control of this team right now, because under Freddie Kitchens, they're just so undisciplined and are just playing horribly, committing penalties, attempting to murder Mason Rudolph with a helmet. So, I mean, they've got to have someone step up and say, hey, this is unacceptable. And I feel like that has to be Baker. I feel like it's a good spot for him to do it. But yeah, definitely with them look at potential to the Steelers scares me a little bit. So that's why I'm not going more than 1 unit on this one. It's going to be an interesting game, because if they fall flat against the Dolphins, then Freddie Kitchens is going to look really bad.
Yeah, that's true. Real quick, what do you think about the Garrett suspension? Do you think he deserved to be suspended for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think they actually got the suspensions right for the most part. I think the indefinite suspension for Garrett, with him being out for the rest of the year, They needed to do that because it's one of the worst things that's probably been seen on the field. I know people were like unearthing all of these other terrible things that happened. One of them was Gronk hitting Tre'Davious White long after a play, which he got suspended for and should have been. But the fact of the matter is, there was no need for Garrett to do any of what he did. I know a lot of people will argue Mason Rudolph started it thing, but Myles Garrett hit him late. Rudolph was trying to rip his helmet off. He shouldn't have done that. He went after Garrett, but Garrett had no business flailing a helmet at a guy without a helmet on. And if it strikes him in a different way, we could be talking about a serious injury. So Garrett had to be suspended. They had to make an example out of him. They gave Pouncey about the right amount. I think Ogunjobi getting one was fine. You can debate whether or not Rudolph should have been fined or suspended, but I didn't have a strong opinion on that one. But I thought they actually did a pretty good job, and I don't usually say that about NFL suspensions. So
yeah, that's true. It's uncommon for them to get it right. I wouldn't have suspended Pouncey 3 games, but I agree with everything else. Mason Rudolph did start it, but I mean, we've seen that a lot, like with players taking off other players. Happens like once a month in the NFL, but we've never seen anyone swing a helmet at a player's head. It's just absurd.
The comparison I've made for this is basically like Mason Rudolph. If this was you and me on the street, if I walked up to you and slapped you across the face and you came back and grabbed like a baseball bat and hit me on the head with it, that's the equivalent of what happened. So the two acts are completely unequal. So
I completely agree. And can you imagine if Rudolph suffered just brain damage and just kind of like is comatose right now? Like, it would be horrible, and they wouldn't be able to let Garrett play ever again if that happens. So Garrett, in a sense, is lucky that Rudolph didn't suffer any brain damage at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more quick point. To your point on Pouncey, totally get that he was trying to protect his quarterback. And in the heat of the moment, I probably would have done the same thing as him. I think the NFL just had to come down with something to keep him from playing the Browns again and kind of make an example of him too, like saying like retaliatory behavior, also not okay. But I get the case for what you're making.
Yeah, so this comment didn't bother me. We see in hockey all the time. Yeah, we see fights in hockey all the time, but how often do you see someone swing their stick at someone's head? Like that doesn't happen. Like there are fisticuffs, but there's no one swinging their stick right at someone's head like without a helmet on.
Yeah, that happened to maybe an old Bruins player. My dad was telling me about it, but it was like years and years and years ago. So that almost never happens in hockey.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Broncos at the Bills. This line opened up Bills -5. It's down to 4. Looks like lots of sharp action on the Broncos. So are you with the Sharps here?
I am with the Sharps. I think the Bills are still overrated because they've mostly beaten bad teams. The only team they've beaten that's over 500, I think, is the Titans. And the Broncos the last couple of weeks under Brandon Allen have had some life. They've covered the spread in both those games. The other game I referenced being sad that I did not change my pick for was the Broncos Vikings, because during the podcast, if you'll remember, I said I really want to pick the Broncos, and I didn't do it, and I regret it. But Denver's 6-4 against the spread, and they're 3-7 individually, but there were a couple games at the beginning of the year that they really could have won, and they didn't quite get it done. So if they were 5-5 right now, I feel like the spread would be a little bit different. And I feel like if the Bills were playing their schedule backwards almost, they have a tough stretch at the end of the year, they probably would be 7-3 right now. So these teams are more evenly matched than I think the spread indicates. And the Bills are going to be looking ahead to that gauntlet against the Cowboys, Ravens, Steelers, and Patriots. So I think that is going to make me be on Denver here. I don't know how much I would bet on this game. Again, Brandon Allen is a big factor in me being just, at any point the wheels can fall off for him. But I'll consider betting a couple units on this one. I don't know what you think about this, but I feel like Brandon Allen is just the latest Allen to emerge from nowhere and be great against the spread.
That's true. It's amazing how well they've done this year. If I were more confident in Brandon Allen, this would be a huge play for me, 5 units or so. Because of Allen, I'm going to limit it to 3 units, but I still like Denver a lot. I think you're absolutely right about the Bills. They're overrated. They almost lost at home to the Bengals. They almost lost at home to the Dolphins. They're trailing the Dolphins in the third quarter at home earlier in the year. They let the Redskins hang around. The Dwayne Haskins-led Redskins were down 8 points in the fourth quarter. So this Bills team is not that good. And you mentioned their look ahead. They play the Cowboys, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Patriots after this. But not only do they play the Cowboys next week, it's on Thanksgiving, so it's going to be 4 days later. So that's another reason they could be looking ahead. So I like Denver a lot. I feel like the Broncos should be able to run the ball very easily against the Bills, who struggle against the run. The Broncos, it took them 10, 11 weeks to realize that they should run Philip Lindsay more than Royce Freeman. But I guess better late than never. And I think Lindsay's going to have a huge game against this bad run defense. So I think Denver could win outright. I'm going to take them for 3 units.
Yeah, I think that's just the logical pick at this point. And I feel bad for Vic Fangio because I feel like he's going to get a bad rap after this season. But they're both just, I mean, his ability to coach this year hasn't quite shown up. But I feel like he deserves a couple more wins too. So hopefully they'll win outright. And yes, Rick, I actually am thinking about going to Gronk's Miami Beach party because that would be pretty awesome.
I didn't even hear about it. Is it during the Super Bowl or what?
Yeah, so he had this big announcement that he announced that he was announcing. So Sunday he comes out with I've got a big announcement. So I wrote up an article on that. People naturally got angry, being like, it's not him coming back. And I'm like, that's what the article basically says, guys. Come on. But then today he announced that his next big thing is during the Super Bowl, he's hosting Gronk's Miami Beach party. So it'll be during Super Bowl weekend in Miami. I'm sure there'll be a ton of celebrities there. He's the host. He'll be all over the place with whatever products. I think it's going to be sponsored by Monster, maybe a CBD company too. So it's good. He said it's going to be lit on Instagram. So we got to figure out a way to get invited.
Yeah, I'll be in Miami. Let's try to get invited for sure. And I'll definitely probably write about it in Jerks of the Week. So there we go. Your dad says Ted Green is the guy who
that is the stick wielder. Yes.
Okay. All right. Next game, Steelers at the Bengals. This line opened up Steelers -7. It's down to 6.5. About equal action, which kind of surprised me. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I actually like the Bengals. I want to preface this by saying I'm not betting this game. I will not bet on the Bengals. But the Steelers' offense looked terrible the last couple of weeks. They did not play well against the Browns at all. Mason Rudolph had 4 interceptions. But even in their win against the Rams, they could barely do anything for most of that game. And I just think the Bengals have a porous defense, but without James Conner being fully healthy, I think the Steelers don't have the run game necessary to take full advantage of that. They'll still be able to move the ball, but I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to score enough to make a 7-point cover happen. I don't think the Bengals are going to win this game by any means, but I think the Steelers are in a bad spot to cover this type of spread, especially on the road. And the Bengals will want a little bit of a measure of revenge after getting blown out by the Steelers on Monday Night Football. Also, the absence of Marquise Pouncey is playing a role in this as well for me because I think BJ Finney will come in. He's fine, but he's just not the same type of blocker. And where the Steelers have already had trouble running the ball, that's just another thing that adds to my concern here. So I'm on the Bengals, but I'm not betting this.
Yeah, right now I'm not betting this either. I'm going to be on the Steelers right now for 0 units. I might change this pick later in the week depending on what we see with injuries. It'll help that Benny Snell is going to come back. Even if Connor is out, then Snell will help. You have Jalen Samuels who's going to catch passes against that bad Cincinnati linebacking core. We don't know though if Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson are going to play. If one of them's back, I'm going to be more confident in the Steelers. But if they're both out, that's going to be it's going to be tough for the Steelers to move the ball, even against Cincinnati's defense. On the other side, we don't know if AJ Green is going to play. We don't know if Cordy Glenn's going to play. Glenn, by the way, wasn't on the injury report, and I thought finally last week we were like, all right, Glenn's going to play finally, and he was inactive. It's like, what are they doing here? He's not on the injury report. Just play him. So I don't get it. So we're going to look at the injury report later in the week and kind of make a determination. I might change my pick. I might even bet this game. This line seems a little too high, but Ryan Finley is just awful. He looked great in the preseason. I don't know what happened, but he barely moved the ball against the Raiders, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. One of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. So I don't have any faith that he can do anything against the Steelers. So I'm probably going to be in the Steelers. Just don't want to say that definitively. Like I said, we're going to look at the injury report.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. In my mind, I'm expecting Smith-Schuster and Johnson will be out. If one of them plays, I may change my mind as well. But At this point in time, this is just a matchup of two bad teams, and I know the Steelers at least have a good defense. I should say bad offenses. I should say that, not bad teams, because the Steelers have a great defense. But part of me feels like the Bengals need to get their win at some point too. Like they're not going 0-16. I can't imagine, but who knows? Maybe they will. They do miss Marvin Lewis. That much is clear.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you can kind of make the argument this is their Super Bowl because they're desperate for a win. They hate the Steelers. I'd say if the Steelers were coming off a win, they'd be flat for sure, and then I would like Cincinnati more. But the fact that the Steelers lost last week, I think that might make them more focused, but I'm not totally sure. So there are a lot of unknowns in this game. Just the one bet it, but. A game I like a lot more is Giants at the Bears. This line opened up Bears -7. It's down to 6.5. Some sports books don't have a line on this game, including Pinnacle, which is the sharpest book on the web, which is surprising to me because I don't think there's much of a difference between Trubisky and Chase Daniel. But I guess Pinnacle, they're smarter than everyone, so they must know something. So who do you like in this game? I do like one side a lot.
I love the Giants in this spot. Like, what have the Bears done that they should be 6.5 point favorites in this game, or 6-point favorites, or whatever they're going to end up being? Their offense cannot move the ball. They can't score. Last week against the Rams, they put up 7, and I know they missed a couple field goals. Pinheiro missed 2 that should have given us either a push or a cover. A very, very, very frustrating loss for both of us last week.
Horrible.
But I mean, the Giants are coming out of a bye. They have the weapons in their running game if Saquon Barkley is healthy to exploit the Bears' weakness. I mean, we saw Todd Gurley run all over the Bears last week. And Gurley hasn't been healthy all year either. So I think the Bears are not the right side here. I think they're going to have a tough time with the Giants. I don't know if the Giants will win this one outright, but just a couple more stats. Daniel Jones, the last 3 games, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he's really starting to play better. Bears defense will be a test for him, but if he can avoid turnovers, he'll give them a chance to keep it close. And the Bears in their last 6 games have allowed at least 98 rushing yards 5 times. So I just think that they're going to keep it close. And if Trubisky plays or if Chase Daniel plays, I think the Giants are going to find a way to cover the spread.
Yeah, I made this line Bears -3.5. Like I rate the Bears a little bit higher than the Giants. So I don't know why this spread is 6.5 or even 7, which was the opener. It doesn't really make much sense to me. The Bears can't move the ball at all. I guess in between the 20s, they're okay. They're just so bad in the red zone, and they have a kicker who misses everything. So they have such trouble scoring. And then on the other side of the ball, they have trouble stopping the run. We just saw Todd Gurley have a great game. And then Chris Collinsworth was talking about the Rams, a rookie offensive lineman who are doing well. I don't know if they're doing well. I just think it was the Bears just struggling to run block. And so you're gonna have Saquon Barkley with rest coming off one of his worst games that he's had as a runner. I think he's going to be motivated, and I think Barkley's going to have a huge game. I think the spread might be too high because people remember the Giants losing to the Jets, and everyone bet on the Giants in that game. But the Giants were missing Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, and we know for a fact that Shepard's going to come back. He's practicing fully. Ingram says he has a good chance of coming back. So the Giants could be at full strength for the first time in a while. So I think this gives them good value. And again, I just don't know why the Bears are favored by this many points. So I like the Giants a lot. This is going to be one of my top picks of the week.
Yeah, it'll probably be one of my biggest plays too. Like you said, the line is just so off. So I'll be putting a few units on this. And you mentioned those other receiving weapons, and that'll open up more opportunities for Slayton to get open, Darius Slayton, because he's been really good the past few weeks and is emerging as one of Daniel Jones' favorite weapons. So if they have Ingram, Shepard, and Slayton all together with Barkley, that offense could look a whole lot different than they've looked so far.
Yeah, I think Barkley could have a huge game against this bad run defense. So I'm looking forward to it. Next game, the other New York team, the Raiders are at the Jets. This line opened up Raiders -3. It's still 3. Actually, there's a 2.5 floating around there at Bookmaker. And by the way, I should say that Bookmaker is one of our sponsors for this week. You can go to bookmaker.eu, and if you deposit, you get double your first deposit. And I love Bookmaker because you can basically set your own lines. You just pay more juice or pay less juice depending on what you want to do. So I like that a lot. But anyway, who do you like in the Raiders Jets game?
Yeah, I guess I'm going all New York in these two games because I'm on the Jets here. I think the Jets +3 is a pretty good number. The Raiders are having a serious look ahead issue. They're playing the Chiefs in Week 13. That could be a really big, like, if they overlook the Jets because they're like, hey, we got to beat the Chiefs in order to possibly win the division. They may find themselves having trouble against the Jets. And the Raiders only beat the Bengals by 7 last week. I mean, as much as the Bengals couldn't move the ball on the Raiders defense, the Raiders couldn't quite move the ball for a good chunk of the game as well and had some issues there. Meanwhile, the Jets seem to have turned a corner a little bit. They've scored 34 points in a couple consecutive games. Granted, they were against the Giants and Redskins, two bad teams, but that Oakland pass defense isn't very good, and Sam Darnold is no longer seeing ghosts, I don't think. I don't particularly trust Adam Gase as a coach, but he's been doing better since that vote of confidence the Jets owner gave them. And I just think Darnold, not under pressure, should have a good time because when they got crushed with Darnold against the Pats, Jags, and Dolphins, he was pressured a ton. He was sacked 8 times against the Jaguars, and that was part of the reason they lost. But I just think that I just don't think that the Raiders have enough to cover this spread. I think the Jets could win outright. So I'm going with the Jets. I've been wrong about the Jets, I think, each of the last 4 weeks. So take it with a grain of salt. I've also been wrong plenty about the Raiders this year. So this is not a particularly good game for my record, but I like the Jets here.
So I think it's funny that the public was all over the Jets last week against the Redskins, and that we both had the Redskins because the Jets were a public dog. There was a ton of money on the Jets, and the public seemed to be just fading the Redskins blindly, and they kind of, I thought they lucked into a win really because the Jets are a lot better than they were a few weeks ago. They got Kelvin Beachum back, their left tackle. With him, if he when he and Sam Darnold have been on the field in the same game, they're 3-1 this year. So that's a big deal. Beachum did aggravate an injury last week, so we don't know if he's going to play. That's really going to affect how many units I have on this game. But either way, I like the Jets. Their secondary is better. They have this rookie corner, bless you, on Austin. He played very well. The past 2 weeks he's played very well. So that's going to help them stop the pass. They're great against the run too. They limited, like I said, Barkley to 1 rushing yard. So if the Raiders can't run that well with Josh Jacobs, it's going to be Derek Carr throwing into a better secondary. So I really don't see the Raiders moving the ball that well. Like you said, they only scored 17 against the Bengals, who have a far worse defense than the Jets do. And yeah, like I said, I don't know why the Raiders would be favored by 3 in this game. I made this line Jets -1. So I think the Jets could win outright. We're starting to see some public money coming in on the Raiders. I think it'll be up to it's like 60% right now. I think we'll see like 65 to 70 by kickoff because I think the public is just going to look at this record and say the Raiders are 6-4, but I think what you said is definitely legit. Like they could be looking ahead to the Chiefs, and it's such a big game. That's the biggest game in a very long time, like an extremely long time since they made the playoffs a few years ago. So why would they be focused against the 3-7 Jets? I feel like they think they could just go into the Meadowlands and beat the Jets. So I like the Jets a lot. This is gonna, this can be one of my top plays of the week. Assuming that Beachum plays.
Yeah, if Beachum plays, I'll be a lot more confident in this game because he's their best offensive lineman this year by far. But that overlook element is just so huge; it just looms large, and I really do feel like that vote of confidence for Adam Gase has kind of made him coach a little bit better because he's not worried about like losing his job at this point. I've argued that he should probably be fired, but if he can keep the team playing like this, maybe not. He's got to do it against better competition, so this will be a good test for them. But I do like them, and I agree with you. I thought this line should have maybe been a pick 'em, so we're getting some good value here.
Yeah, I thought the Raiders would be favored by 1 or so. So it's like kind of the same thing. It's nice to see that someone else agrees with us that there could be a look ahead. I think this is definitely a look ahead spot. Next game, Panthers at the Saints. This line opened up -7. It's up to 9.5. So someone is betting the Saints pretty heavily. So will you be doing the same?
Yeah, I'm on the Saints here. The Kyle Allen love fest is officially over. The last 4 weeks, these are his numbers. He's completed 58.6% of his passes, has 1,022 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. So early in the season, when the Panthers were doing well and Kyle Allen was winning and covering against the spread, he was doing a good job of avoiding turnovers. That's sort of gone out the window recently. So I'm not willing to trust him against the Saints. I mean, the Saints just used Jameis Winston's turnover problems to cover a spread and beat the Bucs by 17 points. I think the Panthers are going to have trouble winning on the road. The only thing that gives me a little pause is Marshawn Lattimore is still probably going to be out for the Saints, I think. So if he's not healthy, that'll give the Panthers at least a little bit of an opportunity to get some open receivers. But last week, the Saints limited Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for most of the game. So I'm not too worried about DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, both of whom I like, but not as much as the other two. So the only question is, will the Saints be looking ahead to the Falcons on a short week? And also with the line moving a lot, that's a red flag for me too. But I'm still going to be on the Saints here. I'm not going to bet much on it, maybe a unit or two, depending on the injury report.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet this game because, I initially thought I'd be on the Panthers because the advanced spread on this game was Saints -6.5, and this moved 3 points. And my deal, like this moved across a key number of 7. It moved 3 points, and I like fading the advanced movements like this because it just gives good value with the other team. But then I looked at some of the models, and the computer model says the Saints should be -12. DVOA says the Saints should be -11. So fading that, going for the Panthers just removes the key number of 10. So that kind of goes the other way. Real quick, I was surprised by this. Where do you think DVOA ranks the Panthers overall? I was shocked when I saw this.
Oh, man. I would think they'd be middle of the pack, like maybe 16, 17. Like that would be where I would place them because they have a good defense and Christian McCaffrey, but that offense with Kyle Allen is not great.
No, it's not. I was shocked. They're 27th in DVOA.
Wow.
It was startling how bad they are in DVOA. So that gives me some pause. I might go with the Saints, and I was kind of thinking like Carolina's run defense. Their pass rush is really good, and their secondary is fine, but the run defense is so bad. And we just saw Alvin Kamara for the first time in a while look healthy. So I think he's going to have a huge game. So that makes me wonder if I should be going with the Saints. I'm currently 0 on Carolina, but I think I might change to New Orleans.
Yeah, that DVOA number is so shocking. Like I can't believe that. But the more you think about it, the weaker the Panthers team becomes because especially if Allen's going to turn the ball over and they don't have the run defense and their secondary play has been up and down depending on injuries. I mean, saw them struggle against the Falcons last week. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the Saints here. Probably just go one unit at the most. So this is definite. It's a tough spread, but I just don't see the Saints not being able to cover here.
Yeah. Like I said, it might change. Next game, staying in the NFC South, the Buccaneers at the Falcons. This line opened up Falcons -2.5. It's out to 4, actually 4.5 in some books. So it looks like the Falcons are finally playing up to your your prediction at the beginning of the year. Kind of mine too, because I bet them to win the Super Bowl. So who do you like in this game?
Well, I want to preface this by saying if the Falcons win out, and I think if either the Saints or Vikings lose out, they can make the playoffs. That will not happen, I don't think, but or it would take some miracle for that to happen. But I like the Falcons in this game. I have not been on the Falcons the last 2 weeks, despite kind of wanting to be and then being wrong. So I don't want to get burned by them again. Of course, now I'm jumping onto a bandwagon, and the spread has moved a bunch, so now I'm worried about that. But the Falcons just look so much better than they did early in the season. After the bye, they seem to have figured things out on the defensive side. I mean, they've held their last opponents to single-digit scoring. I mean, that's huge. And, their defense is playing better, and they're playing Jameis Winston. So Jameis Winston is prone to interceptions, turnovers. And while he might be 7-6 straight up coming off a multi-interception game, he's struggled after them this year, and he just got crushed by the Saints. And I can't imagine the Falcons just completely regressing against the Bucs, especially at home. The only thing that I would be worried about is the Falcons playing the Saints at home on Thanksgiving. So might look ahead to that. But where they've already beat the Saints once, I kind of think that they'll want to beat the Buccaneers this week and just say like, hey, look, we got 3 consecutive NFC South wins, so Dan Quinn can keep his job. He seems to have the team motivated right now. So I'm going to go with them. I don't think I'm going to bet on this one just because that number has moved, but I'm finally back on the Falcons.
So, one of the things you mentioned is one of the reasons why I wanted to bet the Buccaneers is because the Falcons might be looking ahead. I know they beat the Saints already, but it's Thanksgiving, it's national TV. The Saints are obviously a lot better than the Buccaneers, and beating the Saints twice, that's kind of a feather the Falcons could put in their cap. Even if they miss the playoffs, they can say, all right, we beat the divisional winner twice. We're gonna be better next year. And I think if that happens, I think if they sweep the Saints, I think Dan Quinn keeps his job. So I think they might be looking ahead. Another thing is the spread. The advanced spread in this game was Atlanta -3. Now it's 4.5. Like I said in some books, which is moves across 2 key numbers. I just think that the Buccaneers they tend to play better on the road, and Jameis Winston against this Atlanta secondary, which I still don't think is very good. Seems like he matches up well. The problem I have with the Buccaneers is that Jameis Winston got hurt at the end of the game last week. He sprained his ankle. He stayed in the game, but he didn't look the same. He was kind of like limping around. And Bruce Arians already said that Winston's going to play if he's healthy, but he didn't really say if he's healthy. So we'll see if Winston practices. But even if he practices fully, we don't know if he's going to aggravate the injury during the game. So that concerns me. So I don't think I'm going to be betting the Buccaneers heavily, maybe a unit or two at most. But Atlanta's looking like a buzzsaw right now. So I don't want to bet against them too much.
Yeah. Last week we talked on the podcast about the Panthers-Falcons game. And you were on the Falcons, and I'll give you credit because I was too afraid to pick them. I was like, that had to have been a fluke, and it appeared not to be. Hopefully, it wasn't a 2-game fluke for my sake. But I'll be watching that Winston injury pretty closely too, because if Blaine Gabbert plays, that's going to be, and the defense looks as good as it's been looking from Atlanta recently. That could be a shutout, possibly. I mean, you never know, but yeah, I do not trust Gabbert.
Yeah, they've 12 sacks in the past 2 games, which is just nuts. Like their defense is playing so well. This could be a 2-game mirage, but I'm really interested to see if it is or not. So next game, the Lions at the Redskins. This line opened up Lions -2. It's up to 3.5. There's more than 90% of the betting action is on Detroit. Just say it again, more than 90% of the betting action is on Detroit. It's unbelievable. So are you with the public here?
I am with the public, and there's many reasons for this. First of all, I got burned by the Redskins last week, and that was embarrassing. I get burned by them a lot, but that time was very embarrassing. The Redskins coaching is abysmal, and their players have quit. Aside from Dwayne Haskins, Terry McLaurin, Darius Geis, and some of the other rookies, every single one of the players on the team looks to have quit. So I am not willing to bet on the Redskins at any point for the rest of the season unless they show some form of life. Now, there's this video clip that's been going around specifically in Redskins Twitterverse that's Dwayne Haskins basically pleading with his offensive lineman at one point during the game. He's going like, what do I have to do to help you during this game? And they all just looked disinterested and did not look like they were talking to him at all. And it just seems like everyone is checked out. Like they know the season's lost. They know they're not going to be good. They know they're not going to win much. So even with the spread rising, I just can't bring myself to pick the Redskins because they're sort of getting to the territory that the Dolphins were at early in the year, where the Dolphins were trying to lose kind of early in the year, but the Redskins at this point aren't necessarily trying to lose, but their players just don't care. So I'm at the point where I'm just going to go with Jeff Driscoll. They moved the ball well against Dallas. They should have no problem doing it against Washington. And, this may come back to bite me. The Lions might be looking ahead to Thanksgiving. They may overlook the Redskins. It's also Jeff Driscoll, so I don't love betting on that, but I can't pick the Redskins. So I'm on Lions -3, but I'm not betting more than a unit on this game. It's either a 0-unit play or a 1-unit play. Nothing more, nothing less.
This is one of my highest picks of the week. I'm on the Redskins, like 4 or 5 units. Like Jeff Driscoll is a 3.5-point road favorite. Like, do I have to say that again? That Jeff Driscoll is a 3.5-point road favorite. This is unbelievable. I never thought a quarterback this bad would be a road favorite by this many points. I know the Redskins look terrible against the Jets. I think the Jets are a lot better than people think they are. We saw them beat the Giants, and like I said, with Kelvin Beachum and Sam Darnold, the 3-1 this year. So I'm not going to read too much into that game. We just saw before the bye, the Redskins hung tight with the Bills. They were down 8 in the fourth quarter. So, and the Bills aren't that bad. They're overrated, but they're not that bad. They're like okay. So we've seen the Redskins hang around with an average team, and I think the Lions with Jeff Driscoll are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like what did they do well? Like they can't stop the run. They can't pressure the quarterback. They can't stop the pass. They can't throw the ball. They can't run the ball. So like they don't do anything well, and yet they're favored by 3.5 points on the road. I don't know. The Redskins, their secondary stinks. Like we just saw Sam Darnold throw all over them. I just don't think Jeff Driscoll can take advantage of that. Like he's not an accurate quarterback. He can run around just fine, but he can't throw on the Redskins. And so you're going to try to see the Lions try to run the ball like with Bo Scarborough, like they did last week. But the Redskins stopped the run well. So I don't think that's going to work. And I think the Redskins offensive line is not that bad now that everyone's healthy. I know they didn't play that well last week, but like I said, Detroit doesn't have that good of a pass rush, and Detroit can't stop the run. So I think, last week the Redskins couldn't run the ball against the Jets team that stuffed Saquon Barkley. But this week we'll be able to see Adrian Peterson run well and Darius Geist run well, and they should be able to make life easier for Haskins, and maybe Haskins won't be crying this week. So, I'm on the Redskins. I love this. I mean, public action on a 3.5 point Jeff Driscoll road favorite team. Like, sign me up. I'm on the Redskins for sure.
Yeah, you've convinced me not to bet this game. I just can't pick the Redskins just because I've watched them so closely, and it's more of an attitude thing than a matchup thing, because I feel like with the matchup, you're right. The Redskins should hypothetically match up well against the Lions and be able to contain them. I just don't know. I don't know who's checked in at this point, and we'll find out. We'll find out this week, because if they can beat the Lions or cover here, then maybe my opinion will change. But I just think they're super checked out right now.
Maybe they were. You could be right. Maybe. But from my experience, is that like teams don't quit for more than one game in a row, like because they're still playing for contracts. Like like they know they're not going to make the playoffs. They know their team sucks, but they're still playing for next year to get their next contract. So I think we're going to see better effort from some guys. I feel like, hopefully. Someone asked, "What's a unit? $100 bet." A unit is whatever you make it out to be, like whatever your bankroll is. On my site, and me personally, a unit is $100. But if you're betting smaller, a unit could be like $20. So a 3-unit bet will be like $60. If you want to go higher, a unit could be $500 if you're like a high roller or something. So a 5-unit bet will be $2,500. So it's all relative. All right. The last of the late afternoon games, the Seahawks are at the Eagles. This line opened up. Eagles -2, still -2. So who do you like in this game?
I really like the Eagles in this one. The Seahawks are pretty overrated. They're coming off a bye week, so that kind of gives me a little pause, because I think Pete Carroll's a good coach and should have a chance to have a good game plan ready. But the Eagles need to win. Their offense was just stonewalled by the Patriots, but they were able to keep it close for most of the game. Seattle has a bottom 10 defense, so they're going to have trouble stopping Carson Wentz. And Jordan Howard, who should be healthy again this week. I think that the Seahawks also might look ahead to a Monday night game. They're playing against the Vikings next week as they look to jockey for wild card position. And I just think this number is a little bit too low. Like, I think the Seahawks week 1 beat the Bengals by 1 point. And then they've ridden to some other good victories since then. They beat the 49ers, and that's what a lot of people are going to be focusing on. But that game, they came pretty close to losing. So that would be, or even tying. So I think that the Eagles are going to be motivated. They know they have to keep pace with Dallas. They know that Dallas is playing New England this week, and that could end up being a loss for Dallas. But if Dallas wins that one, also puts the pressure on Philly. So they need a win. I think they cover the 2 points, especially at home. And the big thing I'm watching is, are Alshon Jeffrey and Jordan Howard going to play? If they do, I think the Eagles have a really good chance of covering this. And if they don't, I might be a little bit more timid, but I'd still be on the Eagles.
Yeah, so question is that spread including Alshon and Howard? I mean, I don't know what the books are assuming, but they're still confident to post a spread. We don't know if Alshon's going to play. I assume Jeffrey will be back. Lane Johnson's the bigger question mark, I think, in my opinion, because Against the Patriots, the Eagles were up 10-0 with Lane Johnson. And then when Lane Johnson got knocked out, they didn't score a single point after that. So we've seen historically Carson Wentz is just so much worse without Lane Johnson, and he's great with Johnson. So they'll need Johnson on the field. So that's a big injury. Jeffrey too. So depending on their availability, that's what my unit count's going to be. If they're both back, I'm going to be on the Eagles for 4 or 5 units. If one is back, then maybe like 2 or 3 units. If neither plays, then I may not bet this game, or maybe a little bit on the Eagles. I still like the Eagles, though. I mean, this is a must-win game for them. They're going to be more desperate than the Seahawks. You're right. I think the Seahawks could be looking ahead. And Seattle is just a huge public dog. I didn't mention this earlier, but Seattle, almost more than 80% of the money is on Seattle, which is a lot. And yeah, we finally saw a public dog cover last week, I think for the first time this year when the Jets covered against the Redskins. But I think that was accidental. I think the books posted a bad spread because I don't think they accounted for how much better the Jets are now. But I think the Eagles and Seahawks, I think the Eagles are better than the Seahawks if they have some of their guys back. So I'm definitely on the Eagles in this game.
Yeah, and I have 2 to 4 units pending the injury report as well. I kind of forgot that Lane Johnson was out. I'm so focused on the skill position players at this point. But Johnson's probably the biggest one because Wentz under pressure is not a good thing. So hopefully Johnson will play and we can put the max amount on the Eagles. But until we see, we'll keep the unit counts a little bit close to the vest.
Yeah, definitely. And check back on waltzerfootball.com later in the week, for updates on that. And just mention before we get to late games, we're sponsored by DraftKings. So if you go to DraftKings.com, enter in promo code WaltzerFootball, that's one word, WaltzerFootball, you get a bonus with your first deposit. So you get to play a contest for free. So that's nice. I should also say that please hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. So that would help us a lot, I think, hopefully. Next game, the first of the late afternoon games, the Jaguars are at the Titans. Spread open up, Titans -3. It's still -3. Actually looks like a little bit of sharp action on Tennessee. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Titans. I don't like this game much. I think it's one of the most evenly matched games on the slate. I think the spread is dead on. I think -3 for the Titans is right. Brian Tannehill's 3-0 against the spread since taking over as a starter, I think. So he's been doing a good job. I've looked at the last 10 Jaguars-Titans games. They've all been decided by, or rather 8 of the 10 have been decided by 3 or more points. So we're going to get a cover one way or another. It doesn't look like there's going to be a push. But the Titans are coming off a bye week. They have a favorable matchup. Derrick Henry against those Jacksonville linebackers looks really good on paper. I just don't think that this is going to be a game that I'm a huge fan of because the Jaguars should be able to move the ball because Tennessee's secondary is weaker with Malcolm Butler out. I think the most likely result of this game is Tennessee winning by a field goal with a push. But if I had to pick one side, I go the Titans. I just think Tannehill has them going in the right direction. They know they need to win to stay in the playoff race and the wild card race, and they've had extra time to prepare. And Mike Vrabel, I don't think he's a great coach by any means, but I think he's solid enough that he'll have a good game plan. So I'm on the Titans for 1 unit right now. That may change. I may not bet this game, but I think this is one of the more evenly matched ones on the slate.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about this game either. I currently have no units on this game. Maybe I'll switch to one, but I'm not sure. So the spread is 3. I made this line -3. I think the computer model says Tennessee should be favored by 3. And like you said, the most likely result of this game is Tennessee by 3. So it's kind of like maybe you should just bet Tennessee to win by 3. I think that might happen. So I think Tennessee matches up like fine with the Jaguars. Like they should be able to run the ball, like you said, against the Jaguar linebackers who allowed 2 100-yard rushers to the Colts last week, including Jonathan Williams, which is kind of nuts. So again, Derrick Henry's rested, so he should be able to run well. The Jaguars, they'll have some success moving the ball, but their offensive line sucks, and Tennessee can pressure the quarterback well. So, and plus Tennessee is going to be out for revenge after losing to the Jaguars on Thursday night in week 3, which oddly enough, this is different quarterbacks for each team in this game, in the second matchup, which is weird. But I like Tennessee, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to bet them. Like I said, the sharps are on Tennessee though, so maybe that'll convince me to bet a unit on them.
Yeah, and if the sharps are on Tennessee, that'll maybe make me bet the unit too. This is completely unrelated to this, but I think that Tennessee should keep Ryan Tannehill at quarterback moving forward and draft Tua Tagovailoa if he falls, and just let him heal up, and then Tua could take over that team since he got injured. But I would love to see Tua go to Tennessee and give Tannehill more time there.
Yeah, I'd like that too. I think another good spot for Tua is the Chargers. Because the Tua is not going to be ready next year, so they can have Phillip Rivers start another year, and then in 2021, when Tua is ready to play, he can take over for Rivers. So I like that as well. So I like the Tennessee spot too. I think Charlie is going to mock, not to spoil his mock draft, but I think Charlie's going to mock Tua to the Titans. Could be mistaken, but I think I saw that in the email he sent over. All right, the next game, Cowboys at the Patriots. This line open up Patriots -7. It's down to 6.5. As you might expect, lots of public money on the Patriots, but yet the spread's dropping. So this says the Sharps are on Dallas. So are you with the public or the Sharps here?
I'm with the Sharps and against my New England roots for a second week. Well, maybe not with the Sharps last week. I can't remember what they did. But this spread is just too high. Dallas has the number one offense in the league. They're number one passing offense, too. I know Patriots are weaker against the run, so maybe the passing offense doesn't play as big a role, but the Cowboys have Ezekiel Elliott, so they'll be able to run better, and they can still pass well. So I think that they match up well against the Patriots defense. The big thing I'm watching on that side of the ball is if La'el Collins is hurt. If he's injured, then I may reconsider this a little bit more so unit count than anything else. But the Patriots offense has struggled badly in recent weeks. Even though the Lions just moved the ball well on the Cowboys defense, I don't think this is the week that the Patriots offense really breaks through. It sounds like they're maybe going to get Isaiah Wynn back, but Belichick's kind of keeping that tight to the vest as you'd expect him to do. If he plays, I think they have a possible chance to cover this spread. So that's another thing impacting me. But I just think the Cowboys keep this close. We're getting the key number of 6. And even as a road game, I think they keep it. I think they're able to cover this spread. And I don't know if they win outright, but they're going to keep frustrating Tom Brady, who sounds very, very upset. And my father wants to know what type of pizza you think he is because he just read your book.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for reading. No, he's still a pepperoni pizza. Absolutely. He's you can't doubt him. Brady is still the man. He's 42 and he's still playing very well. It's tough conditions last week, but there was heavy wind, great Eagles pass rush. So I can understand why the Patriots didn't score too many points last week, but I still trust Brady. So for this game, I'm on your side. I like Dallas to cover. I think you're right. The line's too high. I made this line New England -5. DVOA thinks it should be -4.5. So we're on the right track there. The problem is that I've seen this story way too many times. So I can imagine the Patriots losing in the first half. The Cowboys have a lead. Then Tom Brady takes the lead. He goes up like 4 or something. And then with like a minute 30 left, they kick a field goal to take a 7-point lead in the cover. Like they've done that so many times over the years. It's crazy. And Brady, it's just like betting against Brady and Belichick is just a losing proposition. So I just don't want to do it. I'm not going to bet against the Patriots. I will side with Dallas for office pool purposes. So like I said, this line's too high, but Belichick versus Jason Garrett is just such a big advantage for the Patriots. I think there's something to be said about that. So that concerns me as well. So those two things are enough to keep me off betting Dallas.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably not bet Dallas too, because I don't like having to root against the Patriots, even if it's just against the spread. And like you said, Brady's the king of front door covers. So I'll probably avoid this, especially where it's a home game for the Patriots. If this was a road game in Dallas, I might consider betting it more. But I don't feel like dealing with that Belichick Garrett matchup either.
Yeah, it's a rough one for sure. All right, next one. It's this flex in the Sunday night. The Packers at the 49ers. This line open off 3 in most places. There was a 4 at one of the books, but it's still 3. So who do you like in this game?
I like the 49ers. I have a feeling, a sneaking suspicion that the Packers are a public dog, because part of me really wanted me to take the Packers, because the 49ers are 0-3 against the spread their last 3. Green Bay is 7-3 outright in their last 10 games coming off a bye. But I feel like this might be a trap game if the Packers are, in fact, a public dog, because the edge belongs with the 49ers, I think, in this game because the Packers don't have a good run defense. They've allowed at least 120 yards to running backs in the last in 7 of their last 9 games. And they're a bend but don't break defense. But I feel like the 49ers can take advantage of that a little bit. So I'll be on the 49ers here, especially with the spread coming down. I like that -3 number because we're getting some key numbers there. So I'm on them for 2 units right now. If the Packers happen not to be a public dog, I could be convinced to go to the other side. You can see the Packers helmet over the shoulder. That should tell you how much I like the Packers. But yeah, 49ers seem like the right side to me right now.
Yeah, me too. This reminds me of the Monday night game, the Seahawks at the 49ers, where the 49ers are favorite. What was it, like 6 or something? And they jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and like Seattle ultimately won, but that was because George Kittle was out, and then Emmanuel Sanders got hurt. So Garoppolo didn't have his 2 top weapons. So I think if Sanders returns or Kittle returns, at least one of them, I think the 49ers should be fine to move the ball on the Packers. And yeah, Green Bay's run defense is so bad. So the 49ers should be able to run the ball very well against them. And the Packers offensively, they've had some pass protection issues. We saw them struggle against the Chargers. And the last time that's the last time they went to California, and they got blown out by the Chargers. I know they weren't really focused for that game, but the 49ers are so much better than the Chargers in every way, including the pass rush. So this line's only 3. So I think there's a good chance the 49ers cover or at least push. And I should say the computer model thinks San Francisco should be favored by 8. So that's kind of great value if you favor that. So I'm going to be in the Niners. The unit count depends on if Kittle and Sanders play. But either way, I'm going to be on San Francisco.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a game that Green Bay might be able to steal, but there are too many factors that line up in favor of the 49ers. And one thing that's kind of probably hurting the 49ers, at least in the public perception right now, is they've played a couple of close games against the Cardinals, sandwiched between that Seattle loss. People forget that when Seattle was really, really good in that in the NFC West a few years back when their defense was so good, they always struggled against the Jeff Fisher Rams when the Rams were bad. So I feel like the 49ers against the Cardinals is just kind of like a little bit of that. It's just like, tough divisional opponent that's always going to play well against them. So I don't read too much into that, even as someone who picked the Cardinals, I think, at least in one of those 2 games.
Yeah, and they were coming off an overtime game on a short week. So I don't really blame them for being flat. And I think it says more that they came back and won and even pushed the spread somehow, which is unbelievable. So I hope anyone who bet Arizona had plus 10.5 or higher, not 10. It's like, well, I should say at least they pushed and didn't lose outright. It reminded me of the Redskins Chiefs game from a few years ago, Monday night, which I had the Redskins. It was the Redskins, right?
Yep.
I had the Redskins in the Super Contest even, and that was just a real loss. So. All right, the Monday night game, the Ravens at the Rams. This line open up. Ravens -1, kind of. Not really, but the Ravens have been 3 this entire week. Lots of action on the Ravens, as you might expect. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Ravens. I really don't get why they're 3-point favorites. The Rams have been overrated the entire season. Like, I know the Rams covered against the Bears. We already kind of discussed that was a little bit fluky. Like, if the Bears kicker could make 1 kick, they would have pushed. And if they could do anything on offense, it would have been much better. But the Ravens are red hot. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a chance to shred the LA defense. His scrambling ability won't negate the impact of Aaron Donald so much as it will be a weapon that will lessen the impact there. The only concern was that the spread moved a little bit, but really that's not a concern because it's just more of a correction for the fact that the Ravens kind of blew out the Texans, who everyone thought were going to play much closer. So I think the Rams offense hasn't been good in weeks. I don't see them keeping this close. I see the Ravens winning possibly by double digits on the road. And let's not pretend like LA has any sort of home field advantage in this game. We say it every time, and I don't think that Jackson's going to fold under the primetime lights either.
Yeah, this is the first time Lamar Jackson will be playing on Monday Night Football, so this is going to be his chance to show out, I think. It's kind of a bummer that we lost some great line value because the advanced spread in this game was pick 'em, and now it's Ravens -3. So, on one hand, you'd be like, okay, this line moved 3 points, and no injuries really took place. So we have good line value on the Rams, but I don't think this line's high enough, just based on how these teams have played. The Ravens are putting more pressure on the quarterback than I thought they could. We saw it last week. Deshaun Watson was sacked a bunch of times. I think the same thing could happen with Goff, and we know how bad Jared Goff is when he's pressured. The Ravens stopped the run extremely well, so Todd Gurley won't have the same sort of production he had against the Bears. And then, like I said, Lamar Jackson, this is his chance to show the world how great he is, and I wish I would have known a week ago. So, I learned from my mistakes. I'm going to pick the Ravens. I don't know if I'm going to bet this game yet. There's just so much money on the Ravens, and we lost some line value, but maybe I'll talk myself into betting the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up betting this game just because Lamar has been kind to me, and I regret not. I did not bet last week on the Ravens because it was your pick of the month, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't profit and see Walt get crushed. So I did not profit. Yeah, no, I was like, I should root for the cover in this circumstance. But yeah, no, the Ravens and the Rams are two entirely different teams. Like at one point, I did think both were overrated, but now it's abundantly clear that the Ravens are properly rated and the Rams are abundantly overrated.
Yeah, and based on the spread, maybe the Ravens aren't rated highly enough because I think this line maybe it'll be like what we saw last week, where the line was like toggling between 3.5 and 4, and then it ultimately went to 6 with the Chiefs favorite against the Chargers. I could see if there's this much public action on the Ravens and the sharps aren't betting the Rams, which it doesn't look like they are. I could see this line rising and hitting like 5.5 or something. Comment says, don't write off the Rams. Todd Gurley's finding his old form. He did against the Bears. The Bears can't stop the run. Like the Ravens are such a good run defense. So I think that's going to definitely limit Gurley. Ravens versus Patriots AFC Championship. It looks like that case. I wouldn't write off the Chiefs just yet because of Mahomes. But I think that's the favorite to be the AFC Championship. And yeah, Marcus Peters' revenge game. Yeah, for sure. So plenty of reasons to take the Ravens.
Yeah, I like that Marcus Peters revenge game narrative. And I think he's helped their pass rush too. Just having better play in the secondary from him, Jimmy Smith coming back, it's given their pass rush more time to get to the quarterback. So that's a big deal too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
I did an episode of the Rico's Rag podcast over at our Redskins, rigosrag.com. It's up on the site now with my co-host Ian Cummings. Talk a little bit about the Redskins coaching search and their potential candidates, not all of them. I've got a list of 30 there that we link to as well, so you can check that out. And we're covering Patriots over at NBC Sports Boston. All that Gronk beach party stuff's coming through, and we obviously have game coverage too. So feel free to check those out. I'll post my picks on Twitter on Sunday, probably, if I make any changes. So follow me at Jake Camenker there and ask me questions if you want to talk NFL. I'm always open to talk.
Sounds good. I'm at walterfootball.com. We're going to have plenty of picked up updates during the week. Like I said last week, Saturday is the most important day because Friday night is when the injury reports come out. So check back for check the site for pick updates. We're going to have a 2020 NFL mock draft update Wednesday morning. We have a 2021 mock draft update. Charlie, like I said, is going to have his mock draft. And Charlie, by the way, pulled some NFL teams on where they think Tua Tagovailoa is going to go in the draft. We're going to publish that article Wednesday morning, so look out for that. Otherwise, Jacob, I'll toss you next week.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right, bye.
Bye.